Welcome back. I am going to very briefly go over some basic information on our website about weight loss as it relates to hormones. I see so many patients in the pharmacy coming in complaining of weight loss. They can't lose weight, they can't maintain it, they yo-yo diet. In our experience, there's some very simple things you can do metabolically from your endocrine system, from your getting your estrogen corrected, getting your progesterone in balance, getting your testosterone in balance for men and women, cortisol in balance, doing a thyroid test properly, in my opinion, besides just testing the TSH, testing your T3 and T4. We are going to get through all of this information. I'm just going to walk you through it step by step, give you some very basic practical information that you could take to your doctor, to your provider, and say, here, look, let's look at the basic fundamentals of metabolism. Let's see if there are deficiencies or excesses, and let's correct them. Let's get to the root cause of the problem. So here we go. Really, this is coming straight from our website. So I encourage you, if you have not gotten to our website, mdcustomrx.com. You can find a lot of information. We spent an incredible amount of time redoing the content here. But if you have any questions, certainly give the pharmacy a call. So you're doing everything right. You're calorie restricting, you're working out, and your doctor keeps telling you, your provider keeps telling you that you don't have enough willpower to put the fork down and leave the table. Well, maybe it's not anything to do with willpower at all. Maybe it has to do with a chemical messenger signaling hormone in your body called insulin that you might be releasing too much of, which is triggering your hunger center to keep eating. And so maybe it's really just the food that you're eating that is triggering your endocrine system to want to eat more and more and more and more. So let's explore some of these culprits, go through these one by one. Well, the big thing that we see here at MD Custom RX is hormone imbalance. So that's everything from the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Those are all hormones, of course. But then you've got the hormone of cortisol. Maybe you're releasing too much cortisol. That's can cause insomnia for you, which then, if we're not sleeping well, we're not losing weight. If we never get into that rest and repair process of the day, because we have high cortisol at night, we've seen this on multiple saliva tests here from patients, they don't lose weight very well anyways if they're not sleeping. But that high cortisol can then spill over into anxiety, nervousness, sugar cravings, and it's this feeling of tired all the time but wired at the same time. And we see that often with increased weight gain right around the belly. That belly fat can often be associated with excessive cortisol levels. So I always encourage a 4-point cortisol test to actually see what your cortisol is, not only in the morning, but at lunchtime, dinner time, and before you go to bed. So another issue that can come up here is actually, as it shows here, is low cortisol can cause chronic fatigue, low energy. I think we've all been there. I know I have for sure. Or then you're going after the wrong foods, you're craving the sugar, the quick energy, and you're on that roller coaster ride of crashing. You've got quick energy, and then you just fade. And then that ultimately leads to poor exercise tolerance. You have long recovery times, a low immune system, and things tend to go downhill quite quickly if you have low cortisol. And the weight comes on, and so on and so forth, in a lot of cases. The next point here about weight loss is make sure you're looking at your vitamin D status. And I would even add to this bullet point of making sure you've got enough magnesium, which helps to essentially activate vitamin D. It's the easy way to say it. But vitamin D deficiency has been associated with hyperinsulinemia and increased belly fat. So you're pumping out too much insulin, And again, I'm oversimplifying this, but when you've got too much insulin in your blood, you're running that risk of more inflammation. More inflammation is leading to increased belly fat because of a multitude of different things going on. Estrogen levels can increase because of that fat, and then because of the belly fat, that those fat cells are actually part of your endocrine system in some aspects or in some regards, and those fat cells can actually produce more estrogen, and this can become a very vicious cycle, which can potentially all stem from chronic low vitamin D levels, leading to too much insulin in the bloodstream. The next point here, I just saw this yesterday at the pharmacy where somebody's TSH was over 2.5. It was actually 2.6. And she was having difficulty losing weight. And so my recommendation was actually for her to go back to her provider to not only do TSH, but T3 and T4 to get a proper, potentially, my suspicion is that she is misdiagnosed hypothyroid patient. She had a lot of classic signs: constipation, cold hands and feet, intolerances to temperature, extreme temperatures, not even extreme temperatures, but just intolerance to temperature fluctuations. So anyways, long story short, hypothyroidism, I think of it as having your thermostat in your body set too low. You basically have a very slow metabolism, and you have a slow metabolic rate, and so you're just not burning fuel efficiently. So that too can be another issue that needs to be looked at. So if you are suspecting that you have an issue with either your sex hormones or your cortisol, I would strongly encourage you to click on this green button here. It says order your saliva and capillary blood spot weight management profile. And when you click on that, it'll get you over to ordering that kit. It's a very simple thing to do. That kit will get mailed right to you. And then my lovely wife, Monica, who's been analyzing and making recommendations off of those results for the last, at least 15, 16, 17, 18 years, however long it's been. She will work with you and your provider on making recommendations to make adjustments if necessary. The next part that I want to discuss is inflammation. As it says here, we really want to get a good understanding of, do we have inflammation in the body? I'm not just talking joint pain, but some of these things could be subtle and not as obvious, where you could have inflammatory issues going on in your GI tract, in your cardiovascular system, and you never really feel anything. So when inflammation is present, a lot of times, even those that are eating really good, as it says here, exercising as they should be, or as best as they can, really potentially don't make a lot of progress in losing weight. And the reason a lot of times can be, as we talked about just a moment ago, you could have issues with thyroid, that conversion, as it says here, from 4 to 3, from inactive to active hormone could be a problem. We could also see increased insulin resistance leading to weight gain, and that just snowballs into a lot of different inflammatory pathways. Another issue we see with men is low testosterone and increased estrogen. So we've got this aromatase enzyme that can be upregulated, or we can just see it when men are dosed inappropriately. Maybe that's not the right word, but dosed in excess of physiological levels, and that in turn causes that excess testosterone to go through this machine, this enzyme called the aromatase enzyme, and creates that excess testosterone into estrogen. And estrogen can, in excess, especially for men, lead to inflammation, and that could be, again, another problem. But if we don't know what your testosterone and estrogen levels are, we might be missing what's going on, why you're gaining weight. Increased leptin levels can also lead to weight gain. I'm going to you skip over that. That'll be a talk for another day. And then the last point here, increased appetite, could be seen with excess inflammation. I'm going to leave that for yet another talk. Weight gain is associated with increased inflammation in the body. One of the key markers that we can measure here at the pharmacy through a simple at-home blood test is C-reactive protein. So if you've been struggling to lose weight and you have not had your C-reactive protein blood level tested by your provider, you can, again, click on that green box there and get your C-reactive protein test sent right to your home. And then, again, my wife, Monica, will take a look at that for you and give you some recommendations for you and your doctor to discuss. If you've been following any of our videos, we do a lot of videos, seminars, lectures on gut health. And I'm not going to get deep into this, but I will say if you're having symptoms of gut irregularity, constipation, diarrhea, food intolerances, food cravings, I strongly encourage you to get the gut microbiome test. And that looks at what kind of bacteria, good and bad, are in your GI tract. A lot of that inflammation that can be going on in your GI tract could be due simply because of dysbiosis. We've got potentially a lot of pathogenic bacteria floating around in your GI tract, causing a ton of possible problems. Another issue for inflammation, or I shouldn't say issue, but another reason we may be inflamed is because of food sensitivities. They could trigger the inflammatory cascade and get this out of control. And this is not a food allergy test. Let me be very clear on this. This is not like your allergic reaction where it's peanuts or whatever the food may be where you have anaphylactic, reaction where your throat closes up, you get hives all over your body, you stop breathing, and you need a trip to the ER, kind of a thing. This is very subtle. Food intolerance testing that we do here is done through a KBMO company. It looks at multiple pathways. It's a very sensitive, very specific test that looks at both IgG1 through 4 and something called C3D, essentially another marker to help confirm that your immune system that can be contributing to your inflammation is being triggered by specific proteins in foods that you may not be aware of. So this FIT test, we call it the food sensitivity test, might be something that you may want to look at if you are having I'll say just symptoms GI-wise, even skin-wise, any type of, I'll say, bizarre reaction that you really can't put your finger on why you're having it might be related to food intolerance issues. Myself specifically, I have an intolerance to carrots, and so anytime I eat carrots, again, this is subtle, but I will get a mild headache. And so never knew that before, but now as I'm aware of this, and I do on occasion eat carrots, and I try to avoid them as best I can, but there are times I have consumed them, and it's usually about a half a day later to a day later, I will have this headache, which I am historically would contribute to something else, and all of a sudden I'm realizing, oh yeah, that was due to my not following my dietary guidelines of avoiding carrots. I'm going to leave it there. This is enough to cover right now for this talk. In our next video, I will look at our genetic testing. I've done previous talks on that, but we're going to leave this last part for another talk. Thank you for listening today. And again, if you are not able to lose weight, let us help you figure this out from a root cause analysis standpoint. Just injecting yourself with a GLP-1 inhibitor, I'm not saying that's wrong, but in my experience, and patients have shared with me their stories on those type of fad diets and medications that are just quick fixes. Again, I'm not saying that they're wrong, but we want to provide to you sustainable weight loss options that are affordable and easy to maintain. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care.